a recruiter or are you a software engineer? Right. So it goes to that level. Say you post on LinkedIn, right? So you get hundreds of applications just because the name that you have created for yourself as an individual and not because you work in a certain company. So basically, what happens is you don't become a shadow of the company that you work for. You are your own brand. Become viral, and some of them might even have few millions of views also. Right. So I'm positive of that.
Do you think AI will replace?
It will not.
Why not?
It will not because it will replace some jobs, not all of them. It will replace some jobs.
But you think some job will get impacted?
Yes, it will. So, for example, call centers.
For example, we are also doing some kind of call center kind job only, right? Initial screening, which can be easily replaced then, right?
Which can be done.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to I'm a Recruiter podcast. I'm your host, Prafulla Deori. I'm thrilled to have you with us today. I'm a Recruiter is more than just a podcast. It's a movement by and for talent acquisition professionals. And we are here to shake things up. Our vision is to create a seamless network of recruiters from classroom to boardroom. Our mission is to create a collaborative platform that connects and empowers any TA professional, providing end-to-end support across talent acquisition landscape. If you're getting any value out of our content, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share, and let us know what you think in the comment section. Let's build a community together. Today, we have a very special guest in our podcast. So we have Srinivas Raju, a seasoned professional in talent acquisition and currently a manager talent acquisition at one of the MNC. With wealth of experience in industry, Srinivas Raju brings a unique perspective on recruitment, talent management, and evolving landscape of human resource. We are thrilled to have you here to share the insights and experience with us. So welcome, Srinivas Raju. We are really grateful that you have given us the time slot and contributed to the community some or the other way. But once again, thank you so much. Looking for a great conversation ahead.
Thanks for giving me your time. That's a wonderful background that you have. Like, actually, I was curious about the podcast you have been doing, Prafulla. And yeah, definitely in each episode, you try to bring out some aspects of talent acquisition and basically focus on areas where what needs to be improved and probably talk about some areas, problem statements, solutions, right? Like what people have been doing, right? Like, and how they have been contributing to the TA community. And it's all about sharing information so that like people can be more efficient in what they do. Definitely, in fact, these podcasts that we're doing definitely adds value to the people in TA.
Yes, agree. We as a community, first of all, welcome you. Plus, we also want to know a little bit about your background, like who Srinivas is actually, and where you were born and brought up, a little bit about your education background, and how did talent acquisition happen to you?
Yeah, I'm not a master graduate. I'm a bachelor of business management and recruiting. Actually, I fell into recruitment. Didn't plan to, like most of us do. We don't plan into building a career for ourselves in recruitment. I actually fell into it. So I would say about 20 and a half years, probably even 21 years into recruitment, technology recruitment. Even before that, I was working in Emphasis UK call center, right? So that was probably my first job. That was my second job, actually. My first job was as an agency manager, right? Like in about 21 years or 20.5 years, I would say about close to 8 years into corporate recruitment in corporate organizations. And in that, probably about if you take away 3 years, which I spent as a call center executive in Emphasis, the remaining years has been pretty much into the agency side of it, where I have been working as a manager, head of delivery, general manager, played various roles, but I even worked with team leads. I worked with IBM down the way. Currently, I'm working with one of the largest digital organization, MNCs, which focuses on digital transformation, about 25,000 employees across 17 countries. So yeah, this has been my journey. But yeah, all through my recruitment experience, I have never been like, say, from a designation standpoint, I have never been an individual contributor. But I have always been an individual contributor somewhere on the other line. So, or the other way. So basically, what I'm trying to say is I have not been only a people manager. While I have been designated as a people manager, I always like to contribute as an individual as well. Because as the saying goes, right, leaders, they are because of their followers. If they don't have their followers, then leaders are not what they are. And similarly, basically, if you have to be good in what you do, rather than you should know how to do it yourself, know the way, show the way, and even go the way if required.
So you are basically from Bangalore,
From basically, I was born and brought up in Bangalore.
and what kind of student you were during your old days, school days?
Yeah, so I would say that like I was always creative. I always had a creative mind to me, but I was never towards getting the highest scores, right? So my mind always used to be a little creative. I had this kind of a thing wherein I could not get stuck onto something for a longer period of time. So that is a problem that I had. Having said that, I also can say that I am not that kind of a person where I really scored high marks. So yeah, that's in fact I've done. So basically, I'm not a master graduate, but the highest graduation which I've done is which is as a bachelor of business management. But I have been always curious about coding. So I did a little bit of coding as well, like C, C++, Fox Pro, Pascal those days. And apart from that, a little bit of Java. Passionate about JavaScript, HTML, CSS, React, front-end development, front-end full cycle development.
Can you also tell a little bit about your life when you were working in a call center? What kind of life was?
It was for a UK national bank. It was at that point of time. That particular bank was the top, I think, fourth top bank in the entire UK. So it was called as Abbey National PLC. Abbey National PLC. That was later taken over by a Spanish giant called Santander. So that's when actually I would say it was a very good exposure because all the customers which I was speaking to, all these guys were from the UK. Right, whether it was from Ireland, Scotland, or United Kingdom. So these customers would only be from those locations. We used to take about 80. I even went up to about close to 100 calls a day. So one, it developed the communication skills, definitely. Having said that, basically, we learn a lot from these people from the UK. So these people like to chat a lot, right? Like they're not just about, okay, straight into the conversation, straight into the transactions. So they would like to know, okay, how is the weather and all these things, what you're doing, what do you do, right? Then they come to the actual transaction, right? So that's how they get into the flow, right? Like not just starting from the transactions, but they basically ensure that they're comfortable talking to us and we're comfortable talking to them. They come to that level playing level and then start the conversation, right? So basically that was a good experience that I had, definitely, I would say. And then basically I started with my recruitment journey.
So you have also mentioned that like during your initial days, you have worked at multiple different consulting firms as well. So, and whenever we are talking to most of our podcast guests, generally what we get to learn from them is everyone in general have started their career in the consulting firm itself. Right? So, but today, if we talk to any of the students, right, they think that they want to get directly into the corporate side.
People back then had much more patience levels. We needed less dopamine. So we used to stick on to roles for longer time. Right? So nowadays, people want basically quick satisfaction. Right? They don't want delayed gratification. They want instant gratification. Right? For example, okay, what's in it for me? Okay, I have closed these many positions. So am I getting any incentives? Like, what's in it for me? So the organizations also understood to keep these new generation people, motivate them in a monetary manner. So basically, they started coming up with these monetary. Even I did that, right? I came up with various monetary ideas in terms of incentives without digging a deep hole into the financials of the organization in terms of P&L. But yeah, so these young people, right? Like they want instant gratification, and that works well for them. But we're from those days when we didn't believe at that point of time when we started working, we didn't have that instant gratification, right? So things used to happen after some time, right? So we were used to delayed gratification.
Agree.
That's the difference between these generations, the newer generation.
On the other hand, what I see is like when you start your career from a consulting firm, you know inside out about the sourcing technique, how to connect with the clients, how to manage your stakeholders and other things.
Yeah, not really, because see, what I can say is if people are working in an agency setup, right? So all they're bothered about is, okay, how many positions did I close? What is my return on investment? Right? This is my salary. Company is paying me the salary. These are the resources they have given me. They've given me a laptop, internet connection, rent, right? Like for the place where we sit, right? Like if we're not working from home, that is, and then job boards or LinkedIn recruiter, whatever, all this becomes the seat cost. Against that, what is the return on investment? So that's how the agency would look at it. The agency is not going to look at, okay, did we close these positions or did we close these positions? Wherever the positions are getting closed, as long as we are getting return on investment, they're okay. Also, the problem is with agencies, recruiters are mostly like, okay, I can work on any requirements without understanding it, right? So that's what happens in agency recruitment. And these people are fast and these people are street smart, right? So, I don't want to get into the details of what street smart means, but these people are street smart, right? So, but yeah, so their engine will get really adjusted for that kind of work, right? So whereas when they move into a corporate role, they see that it is not only that, but it is also like a full stack recruiter, Right. So yes, obviously sourcing is something which is important for even from an agency standpoint for roles which are not that easily available in the market. And that's something which I have trained for in a few organizations, a few agencies that I work with. And all the agencies that I work with are all multinational companies, not even a single small organization. So yes, sourcing in India actually started about 5 years ago. So probably before 5 years, not many people were actually implementing it as such. But yeah, when we move on to a corporate, the learnings that come is like will be more closer to the hiring managers or the technical teams who are actually wanting to close their positions for their different portfolios, the domains, right? So every organization, we could have captives. The organization, it could be a captive, it could be a product company, or it could be a services company, right? Like they would have their own industries or portfolios, right? Like whichever, or domains as people call it. Could be travel domain, it could be retail domain, it could be e-commerce, it could be hotel, it could be basically learning and development, education, oil and gas. It could be various things. It could be chips. It could be like organizations like Brocade, those type of organizations, right? Like it could be both software and hardware both. So these are the various industries and domains, and we have leaders for each of these domains in every organization. So basically, those guys' responsibility would be to ensure that there are enough number of people who are staffed so that the requirements are being taken care of abundantly. And there is no shortage of resources, and there is also not too many people more than what we require.
Yes.
So that way, P&L is taken care of, right?
Sure.
So and people are monetized also. So there's nobody who's there in the system who's not being monetized, non-billable kind of resources.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So that way it is their responsibility, but they're also responsible in some way in terms of employee referrals. In if you have seen in most organizations, corporate organizations, they minimize the agency closures to somewhere between 10 to 15%. They don't go more than 15% because they also have to keep track of the expenses, and that pretty much means 90 to 85% of the hiring is coming from non-agencies. So it could be from recruiters, it could be from employee referrals, it could be through career sites, it could be through basically general referrals, like basically when we talk to people, somebody refers somebody, or it could be through people who have joined us or yet to join. It could be through our posts which we have done, right? So it could be from so many different angles. It could be from sourcing, whatever, right? So and as recruiters, as full stack recruiters, an agency recruiter changes from being I can work on any requirement without understanding the requirement, being a recruiter who actually understands and who can actually screen people at least at an intermediate level, not to the level that a actual interviewer can do, because we guys cannot code. But yes, most of the other things to a certain extent which we can evaluate, and that is the change that happens because there is a closer interaction with the hiring managers, and they tell us what to expect, what are red flags, and we also have the advantage of hearing to the recordings of interviews. So all these things basically help us understand. And also now we have AI looking, basically asking questions, basically getting answers, and setting up our own questions, setting up our own, like every organization has its screening questions. We can, with the help of so many things which we have at our vicinity nowadays, is one of them. We can actually improvise that screening form what we have into basically 3x or even 4x, and we can start asking some questions to people based on, okay, if somebody says, okay, I have experience in this, okay, let me find out how much they really know or not.
Sure.
We get to that level. Yeah.
We'll come back to that question. So just wanted to understand the transition where you have moved from the consulting to a product. So definitely you have worked with lots of different organizations in the product side as well. So you have worked with IBM and other companies as well. So how was the transition? Because there are many consulting recruiter who want to move into the product side, or let's say services or startup. So, but sometimes they feel very difficult to move.
Yeah, it is difficult because things are different from company to company. So there's some organizations who give you a little bit of free hand. So there's some organizations who resort more to escalation mode when things don't happen. There are some organizations where, okay, some things have to be done that day itself. So it should not be moved on. Nothing should be moved on or carried forward to the next day. So there will be some organizations every organization will have its deadlines, right? So there will be different metrics that organizations will prioritize more. So if we talk about TA, there are various metrics, but there are some organizations who feel certain metrics are more important to them. Certain other organizations think some other metrics is more important for them. Right. So having said that, the most important quality that any talent acquisition, no, basically TA, the difference is, right, like you're actually the difference between a TA and a recruiter, I would say, is not only just looking at a ROI standpoint, but you're working as a strategic partner, hiring partner for the organization to fulfill the needs that they're looking to hire within that time frame rather than fulfilling those, right? So that is the change from an agency to a talent acquisition, which is more strategic. Like in human resources, we had HR generalists. Then few years before, then the concept of HR BP came, business partner. So TA is like that rather than an agency recruiter in hiring. Yeah, and different organizations bring different challenges, right? So if one thing we should know is whatever challenges come our way, today, if we don't know how to solve them, we should be able to find a way to solve them. As long as people have that kind of a mentality, they will figure out a way, even if they don't know today what is the way.
So as a corporate recruiter or as a product-based company recruiter, we have different kind of challenges as well, right? So what are some of the biggest challenges you have faced in your career and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so see, I think one of the biggest challenges is the hiring, right? So speed, quality. So yeah, I would say recruitment is all about how the quality of hire, the speed of hire, and the conversion, right? And also the cost. It's all about these things, right? So from a recruitment standpoint. And when I say cost, it also means margin and profit. So it's about all these things. But having said that, there is an experience part also, right? Like when we talk about developers, there is something called as developer experience. When we talk about candidate, there is something called as candidate experience. When we talk about team members, like followers, like a team manager, okay, followers of a team manager give an experience to the team manager, gives an experience to the followers, the team members of the team manager, right? So basically, somewhere down the line, there is something called as TA experience also. So people in TA, all the talent acquisition people, whether they're talent TA associates, senior associates, or specialists, or managers, senior managers, whatever they are, right? So they have to ensure that like they are giving that value add experience, providing while they're doing transactions, right? So there has to be something a value add more than what they're doing as a transaction. Okay, I have to do this, I have to do I if they think that okay, I get to do this instead of I have to do this.
Yeah.
Right, that actually makes a lot of difference. Basically, I can give a few examples, right? So
Sure.
candidate experience. So working, let's say an agency recruiter moved into a corporate organization, and they have learned a lot about the tech stack and the questioning part of it, the screening part of it, the recruiter screening part of it, right? And they're able to, and many a time applicants, the candidates ask, okay, are you really a recruiter or are you a software engineer? Right, so it goes to that level, right? Normally, quite often, right? So basically, they know that like they cannot tell anything and everything and get away, right? Like so what happens in those type of calls is people actually get much more realization, probably a 3x or 4x amount of realization more than the job description. They know where they lack, what are the things they need to improve if they need to get selected. So those kind of, it's nothing but a value add, it's nothing but a candidate experience. But having said that, I'll take it to another level also, right? Like, so there could be some people who have speech impediments, or who are going through some kind of career transition, or they wanted some kind of additional help or counseling, right? Like, for example, the example which I was trying to give is the person who is not able to speak properly. Right. So these are all things which don't come into our scope of work. But when we get into those things and help them out, they're going to remember what we did for them. So it's not about it's about how we made them feel. And it is about what did they get from us, which they did not get from anybody else. So that basically is something which they will not forget for years to come, not even days, right? Like, and people write many good recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. And let's say you post on LinkedIn, right? So you get hundreds of applications.
Yeah.
Just because the name that you have created for yourself as an individual, and not because you work in a certain company. So basically, what happens is you don't become a shadow of the company that you work for. You are your own brand.
Okay. Okay. I totally do agree. One of the things which I see currently is we as a recruiter,
X this company, X that company, right? So many people who write.
yeah. Plus, like we just try to work on a personal brand only when we are looking for a change, right? So there we generally talk lots of different things when we are looking for change. But in general, we don't want to follow the trend, or we don't want to network with our different leaders or community members and all, right?
Yeah. Simple example I can give you is if
Yeah.
a person doesn't go to temple too often, and that person goes to temple, it is only because they want some help in return.
Yes. So another example is like if you see why the developers or any other technical person is growing, because they believe in the power of community. They believe in the power of networking, personal branding, and other things. Whereas we TA talks that we are not given table in the business meetings, right? But are we capable enough? Are we learning or growing in the same way?
See, in fact, I feel the table thing which you're talking about, so that happens because of two things, right? So one is visibility. Now, visibility happens because of the impact that we created for the team, for the organization, for even leaders in the organization, right? So in a way that it has not been done before. So when we do that, impact immediately happens. It happens over a period of time, right? So what follows impact is visibility. When there is visibility, you get a seat on the table. It's inevitable.
I agree. But coming back to the other problem, right? So, what do you think? Do the
Generally, yes, I would say yes. See, because talent acquisition in most organizations, right, is looked at as a cost center, but it is not a cost. There are three types of centers: right? Cost center, value center, and profit center is something which can be immediately monetized, billability. So value is something like, let's say, even a product company. They're building a product. Now, once the product goes live and subscriptions start to happen, then it becomes much more than billability, right? Because it multiplies, right? So initially they have to go through cost, and then it not just becomes one-on-one billability, but it actually multiplies billability. But yes, and there are certain cost centers like all this admin operations and all these things, which without that, a company to some extent, I think they can be automated now, but without them, the whole entire process cannot run. But yeah, so they will come into the cost center, but recruiters definitely should come under value center, not even the cost center. So anybody who comes under the value center, they should get a seat at the table. And now, basically, what are all the teams which come under the TA? Right. So basically, it could be recruitment operations, it could be onboarding, it could be background verification, it could be basically panel availability, panel certification, could be interview panel I'm talking about, it could be business development. Right. So business development is actually, I would say, is a profit center. So apart from the software engineers, so apart from that, like there are so many other things like referral teams, people who generate the sites like employeereferral.com and so many other things, like for example, teams for ATSS. So these are all teams which come under cost center. Some teams could come under value center, but TA team, especially the hiring team, should not be considered in the same level as the operations team. So they should get a special badge, right? So as a value addition team.
Agree. Great. Moving to our next question. Since you have lots and lots of experience in talent acquisition altogether, so what advice you would like to give to our aspiring recruiter or recruiters who are currently just starting, or someone who is in their senior level or lead level who want to move to the management kind of role? What advice you would love to give them so that they can grow and do better in their career?
Juniors, right? Recruiters, I would suggest them to be curious, have a lot of questions. They should think about problem solving. So, gone are those days of stereotype recruiting. So, they need to find different ways. Okay. Doing the same thing over and over again used to give results before. Now, if something is not working, we need to change even messaging to the candidates. See, the old approach still works. You just have to ensure that so time management is something which is very important. Being organized is something which is very important. Having a basic understanding of the important metrics. Okay, so these are the roles that I'm working on. So first of all, before calling, I need to have these many candidates ready with me who are non-duplicate on our ATS. And then I'll talk to them. I'll not spend more than this much amount of time. In that time, I'll screen and I'm going to put them through the process, right? And what's very important is the advice is for recruiters. Unless this is an advice for people who are available in the month, just look at this month in terms of journeys. If you are coming to the mid of the month, look at this month and next month. Don't look to the third month. Don't think about the third month. It does not exist. So just plan in terms of the interviews, number of selections, offers, joiners, and think about I would say between 60 to 70% joiners. If you're a fresher, probably only 50% will join. Think like that. If you're a slightly experienced person, probably 70% of the people will join. The more you're experienced, the better conversion ratio will happen. But as a beginner or as a junior, we need to think as if only 50% are going to join and plan accordingly. So that's the thing I would say to all people from a planning standpoint, and people should have a project management kind of a mindset, and there has to be proper planning. So before we go into tomorrow, before we start tomorrow, we should have the resumes ready whom we are going to talk to tomorrow, today itself, today in the evening, and ensure that those are non-duplicate and you have already tagged them in your name before you talk to them.
Okay.
Like have an initial conversation at least with them today, just for 5 minutes, and check that things are in place before you do the screening call, and then upload the profile in your name in the ATS if you have an ATS. And then the actual screening, you can do it the next day, and then you can either mention screen reject or screen shortlisted or whatever, so that you're planning for the next day, the previous day itself. So basically, that way you're not doing something which is illegal or not we are not supposed to do, but it's something which you're planning for the better, and the organization is going to also benefit. And one thing we need to ensure is whatever the company is paying, right? Like for example, whether it is Naukri or any other job board or LinkedIn, you utilize them as a recruiter, right? So sometimes less is more. When there is less given, people try to fight for it. Give me this, give me that, give me for few hours, give me this for few hours, right? So sometimes less is more. when you give everything, less is utilized out of it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so these are some of the things that come to mind for a junior recruiter. For a senior person or even a manager, it's definitely being able to be an individual contributor and a good individual contributor at that. Plus, also team management skills, getting the best out of each one of them. Try to understand what works for whom, because the same thing might not work for everybody. Try to understand what motivates whom more, and try to pinch that part of it. So that basically the thing that a manager or a senior person should take care of is, obviously health is a priority, and unless and until people have a good health, they will not be able to perform, right? So health is definitely a priority, and organizations definitely should have health sessions, prioritize health, what to do, what not to do, all of these things, so that from a health standpoint, from a basic health standpoint, right? So obviously we're not sports people, we don't have to have that kind of elite fitness, but to do well in what we do, health should not be an obstacle, as long as that is taken care of from a manager standpoint. And also give them all the, and what I've seen from managers is, okay, they just sometimes show up for the meetings and say, okay, what is done, this is done, that is done, but they don't try to sometimes understand if a person needs help. Okay, let me try to help this person. Okay, let me understand where the person needs help. Okay, let me take out half an hour or probably 1 hour, right? So if I have that time, right, and see if I can add a, so that's where we were talking about experience, right? So this is a kind of experience, right? So because then what happens is, it's only asking, sometimes not giving, right? So because it's all, everything is a bank balance, right? So you have enough credit. Now credit is not just about money, right? So let's say I have somebody, a colleague of mine is helping me, so that person has a good credit balance with me that way, because he is helping me or she is helping me. If I am helping somebody, I have a good balance with that person, and that person knows that he has a good balance from me from a credit stand. Though it does not account for money, having that credit balance is something which is very important.
Yeah. One thing which even I feel relevant is focusing on your health is very important, right? Because sometimes we prioritize for work, but we give less priority to our health. And because of that, sometimes you have to deprioritize lots of things which is necessary. And like, see, definitely if your health is good, you can focus much more in a clear way, right? And you can do things much faster. So I totally agree with you, Srinivas.
Yeah, basically, you need to see where you are.
Yes.
So basically, there is that star method, right? You can apply the star method here also: situation, task, action, and result. So first of all, know where you are in a good position from a health standpoint. You are good to go in terms of working for more hours. If you are not in a good position, let's say, then you will have to take certain breaks. So you can only work for certain hours in a day, and you need to maximize what you can do. What can you automate? Things like using basically forms or mail merge, things like that. What can you do to automate some intelligent automation which can actually do the work for you instead of you doing the work, right? So try to do those things. It could be as simple as copy and paste. So if you're automating copy paste, right, so it could mean that you're saving half a day in the week. So in a month, it is saving 2 days.
Yes.
So things like these, right? So you need to identify where most of the time is going. And if you're able to automate that, and that's something which I have done for people in many organizations, and I've done it for free.
Okay. So can you give a little bit more insights on that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, see what happens is, right, like let's say somebody posts a job somewhere. So let's say you create a form, whether it could be a Google form or a Microsoft form. So basically, what happens is you create, so you don't want, ideally, you don't want too much of text in those forms, right? So you create a checklist, they can just select, or a radio button or something like that, the multiple choice or only one option they can select from it, right? So they just select those options, and then only few areas like mobile number, only few areas like mobile number, email ID, let's say a company name and LinkedIn ID. So these type of things, right? So that can be a text field, right? Like our, yeah, notice period. I think those can be also, you can have options for them. So those things that can be automated. You can create those as fields, and people who are interested, they don't just say I'm interested, but they fill this form. Now, because you created the form, you can actually download this as an Excel sheet without talking to them. So you could very well, without talking to them, actually process their profile. Actually, you should talk to them, but you can still process their profile based on what they have filled.
Okay.
Right. So that saves a week's time for you. Right. So, and let's say you have some names and email IDs. As a recruiter, people would have a database for the last 2 years or 3 years. Now they just want to, but they know you, probably you know them. Right. But it's just been a long time since we have spoken. You could just send out an email, one shot, name and email ID, one shot, create a mail merge, one click, mails will go to them, and all the emails will be in your Outlook. And you are going to send the emails from Microsoft Word, right? One click. But if you go to your sent items, you can see all those mails gone to these people in your Outlook. So these kind of intelligent automations we can do, which saves a lot of time.
Yes, totally agree. So, with interest of time, I think another 2 to 3 more question we have. So, again, one of the hot topic I wanted to know your opinion as well, because AI is a buzzword, right? And everyone is talking about AI. If you go to college, even the college student is also talking about AI. If you talk to any of the co-founder or CEO, even he is also talking about AI, right? So, how has the recruitment landscape changed over years, especially in this technology transformation along with AI time? How do you
Yeah,
see
so
complete thing?
I think one thing which most people need to start learning is building their own agentic AIs, right? So basically, what you're doing is you're setting a context, like basically custom GPTs. But custom GPTs only does one thing. But what agentic AIs do is basically you have a custom GPT which does something. Then what it does is after it does something, it goes to another tool and does something else. Then after that second tool does something, that output is put into another tool and something else is done. Now that output goes into another tool and something is created out of all these four tools, which becomes the final output. So that becomes your agentic AI, right? So custom GPT is setting the context for a single thing, whereas ChatGPT is basically you have to give a prompt and you have to give a context, right? So that's the difference. That is where things are going right now. So even with there are a lot of alternatives for ChatGPT also. There's Claude, there is Gemini, there is Bard, there is Grok, there are various other things, right? So which people can use. The best way to check what works, I write a lot of code using these tools, and I build a lot of automation, intelligent automation using these tools, right? Like which work on browsers to do various things, like as I told you, copy paste things, right? So to automate those kind of things, even autofill also, right? Like on ATSs, on applicant tracking system. So I have autofill also, which works on applicant tracking systems, so that I don't have to fill data. Wherever I need to change or correct, only that I'll correct. So some of these things, and obviously for communication, and these tools actually help you to understand screening much better. You can make a screening list for yourself, candidate screening. So you can prepare interview questions. If you want to, let's say, if you want to write a message to somebody on LinkedIn Recruiter, which is more personalized, but which is not something, but it should also look like something which has been written by a human. So when you give the right prompt, so then you get a good output, right? Like for example, you can use this to optimize your resume also, or even your LinkedIn profile, those kind of things. For a lot of things, we can use AI. But again, there are, even for a resume, there are people who check the resume. So there is a particular word for it. So proofreading. Similarly, when AI gives you some information, we should not blindly go with that, right? So we need to also proofread.
Agree. Because like when Google or in Gemini or in ChatGPT, when they're giving the result, in below they clearly mention that the result might not be accurate. So you have to not completely or blindly rely on any of the AI tools, but instead just try to verify before posting anything or using those data. Okay. So what trends do you foresee in the future of recruitment and talent management?
See, one of the things that is happening right now, I feel, is the cost, right? Organizations are starting to think whether they have too much of manpower. And organizations are also thinking if they have too many people managers who are not individual contributors. And they're also starting to think, how can we use AI to get more done from less people?
Yeah.
These are the three things I would say are changing nowadays. But we also need to be conscious as to what to change and what not to change. What if we change, it will go in a different direction, opposite direction for us. And so we also need to, senior leaders should basically think about how to speed up the hiring process. What can we do to ensure that we are not having too many layers to starting from a requirement to hiring and onboarding and to putting that person into a project. So how can this time, let's say, how can we reduce it from, let's say, from 2 months or 3 months? How can we bring this down to one? Yeah. So especially leaders, right? So are definitely going to look into these things.
Okay. Sure. Okay. So moving to our next question, right? Can you share a memorable experience or a success story from your career that had a significant impact on you? Any kind of success story or any kind of experiences from your past, Srinivas?
I actually don't remember any such instances which have had a significant impact on me. But I remember a lot of things wherein I have made significant impact for people in the organization.
Sure, sure. Please, if you can share, it will be
Basically, the last word which you mentioned, right? So that is what I like doing. Share, build, share, optimize productivity of people in the organization, of people in the team. So that's what I like doing, apart from the day-to-day work which I do. So a lot of things which I've done, basically to automate things, to build tools of my own from scratch, right? And whatever I have done, I've given it away for free,
okay.
right? For people in other organizations, for people in different teams of the same organization, and even for people who have taken those with them with other organizations also, when they went to other organizations also. whatever I have given it, everything I have given it for free without any subscription. So that is what I can see that I've shared. I see, I meant being a Gen Z person, right? So there is a limit. So if you're in your 40s, there are certain things you can do. If you're in your 50s, there are certain things you can do. If you're in your 60s, there are certain things you can do. It's
Agree.
more knowledge than what you had before, but you definitely have less time. And with that, priorities change. I hope this conversation has been a little different from the previous conversations, Prafulla.
I think it is. So, as a person, when you are not working, what you love to do the most?
I'm not perfect.
No one's perfect.
I have a lot of I would say things that I have to improve. I don't know if I will improve on that or not. But one thing is for sure, I like doing few things. I like experimenting. I like learning new things, solving problems. Right? Like in ways, I solve problems in ways that nobody thinks of solving. Right, and this has happened many times. Problems that I solve, mostly people don't solve. So this has happened many a times. So that way, I think differently. Number one. Number two, right? Like number two is because I'm creative, right? Like one of the passions is painting art, and I create my own songs
Okay.
in multiple languages. So right now I have a
Nice.
collection of about 170 songs, which I have created through AI,
Okay.
like full songs, complete songs.
And are you putting them in some channel or some website so that public can hear those songs?
I use basically multiple tools, right? So I go with the theme-based kind of things. Like, for example, what can we learn from a volcano, right? So basically, how does a volcano happen? So there is obviously some tension which happens under the mountains over a few years, probably 100 years, right? So and then that tension turns into gas, that turns into ash, and that turns into lava, and that turns into a volcano. Like basically, there's a lot of stress happening over a period of at one situation. How can we apply? So can we make a song out of it for health? Right? So basically, if somebody's health has deteriorated, it doesn't happen in one day, right? It happens over a period of time. So and similarly, it is applicable for other things. So like I take concepts like these and make songs out of it. For example, there's another song which I have made, wherein the title of that is "Ink in My Veins." Ink in my veins. So basically, for a writer or a journalist or for a poet, so the ink is the best tool they have. That is the best weapon they have, and they use it to send their message, communicate their message, which in the hope of changing something, people will read and something will change. So I take these topics, make lyrics, and I get the song, music, everything through using different tools, and I finally make the song that way.
Okay. And have you shared with some of the singers, popular singers, or some of the producers as well?
No. So, but I think of doing those things. I also build, these are some things which I do outside of my core competence. So, just to ensure that I'm not.
You're doing some good things. People should know about those things, right? For example, you mentioned that you automate lots of things and share with people. Your music might be also too good, but if you don't share,
Some
yeah.
of them, I'm sure, if they're used in movies, those will become viral, and some of them might even have a few millions of views also, right? So, positive of that.
Then definitely you have to put those songs in YouTube and other different social media for sure. Okay. Because like you have clearly mentioned, you love experimenting, you love creativity. So why not create something different, right?
Yes, always like solving problems. That's what I try to do. And people, right? Like the people nowadays, Gen Z, people in the new generation, right? Like if they're not learning, they feel like they're not growing, right? So you always need to give them something so that they feel that they're learning at least, even if they're not growing. If both are not happening, they're not going to stay
Yeah.
in the organization. So either one of those things happen. And if they're getting, see, there are three things: they're learning, they're growing, and they're making more money. So these three things, even if they're not growing, at least they're making more. So any one of these three things have to happen. If none of them happen and they feel they're stuck, that's when they think that probably they might want to change. So that is something which an organization has to resist, because a talent who's already there in the organization for a few years has gone through the difficult times and understands how to do things quickly. For another person to come to that level, it will take 6 months.
Yeah.
So the ROI for those 6 months is gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Great. So with interest of time, I would love to deep dive a little bit about the hot topic, which is AI again. How do you see AI impacting the future of recruitment? What opportunities and challenges do you foresee? Like we see that like there are lots of companies building products in and around recruitment. For example, if you take job description creation, you will find somebody other AI tool. If you want resume creation, you find somebody other tool, right? And even to screen candidates, even you have lots of AI tools these days. But when we talk about like in general whole process, there is no company solving the end-to-end process using AI.
Basically for that, right? So see, one of the reasons why there is no end-to-end solution is simply because if they give an end-to-end solution, they will make less money. If they create multiple things for multiple things, they can make more money. That is one of the reasons why they don't build everything into one platform. But anyway, so if you want to solve that problem, you have software engineers in your organization. Build a tool for yourself for the organization. So that's the best suggestion I would give.
Okay. And how do you see opportunities and challenges using AI?
The opportunities are definitely good. AI is going to improve, but there are also challenges, right? So this deep fake, right, things, if the images are getting much better, it starts resembling people like very much you and I, how we look like. So with all the not picture perfect kind of things, right? Like, or those kind of things, right? Like, but yes, it could also increase cyber crimes. It could also increase a few other things. It's not just about recruitment, but yes, recruitment, certain things can be automated, like which are already automated, but organizations are not very keen to take up these things because, see, organizations, first of all, what we need to understand is they're trying to reduce the cost, and these things are only going to increase the cost, right? But the thing is, if we go to these alternatives instead of recruiters, right, so there is not much of guarantee that is going to do a better job, right? So yes, you could use it for screening, right? You could use it for screening, but again, screening also, you need to train the models properly, which will actually match how our interviewers actually interview, right? Like probably few hundreds of interviews should go into its database for a particular role. Let's say, for example, a front-end developer for a senior developer, a senior front-end developer. So we need to have some hundred interview recordings, which goes into the database, which clearly tells the tool, okay, this is what works. Okay, this means reject, this means select, right? So that kind of panel to tool coordination understanding should be there. Only then you can replicate AI with a instead of a human. If otherwise, it just becomes okay, I can automate this. But if you automate that, do you think the end product, the candidate, would be the right candidate whom you can put into a project? You never know. So these are the things, right? So there are lots of ifs and buts, but at this point of time, clarity is more important in decisions than ifs and buts.
Okay. So, but again, I have one doubt in my mind, so I thought of asking you. So, AI can do anything, right? It can do coding, right? It can do create resumes, it can screen profile.
Most
right?
of the junior engineers, right, are going to, most organizations might not hire junior engineers because anyway, AI will do the coding. But the problem, where the problem comes is if the person does not understand the context or the fundamentals, if the fundamentals are not clear, then they will not be able to talk to AI in a better way. So for you to talk to even Google, ask something. So you need to have certain minimum level of subject matter knowledge. For example, even for using a keyword, many a time we might not know the exact keyword to use. And because we're not using the right keyword, we're not getting the right results. Similarly, when you're prompting or asking an AI code platform, right, a generative AI platform, you need to know what to ask and you need to know how to verify that at least. If you don't know that and blindly depending on AI and calling yourself as a AI engineer, software AI engineer, that is not good enough.
So, but do you think AI will replace talent?
No, it will not. So what it will
Why
is,
not? Why not?
it will not, because it will replace some jobs, not all of them. It will
But
replace some
but
jobs.
you think some job will get impacted?
Yes, it will. So for example, call centers.
For example, we are also doing some kind of call center kind of job only, right? Initial screening, which can be easily replaced then, right?
Which can be done, but at the same time, right? So it is not like you press this for that. So it's, yeah, you could say that, but see, basically, a recruiter would rather like to talk to a human being rather than a non-human being. The voice
If
might be similar. The voice might be, there are tools which can do that also. But somewhere down the line, they would definitely want to talk to a human being. And from an acceptance standpoint, right? So it is not that easy.
But on contrary, for example, right, we all love automation. We all love to save time, and humans are becoming so lazy. We want to try new things as well, just to save time. So
And the other thing is, tools don't need breaks, and they're also not taxable.
yeah,
So TDS cannot be deducted for them.
yeah, the
Right.
cost wise, it's saving as well, right?
It's a saving, but I think if organizations are going that way, the government might come up with some kind of TDS deductions for them also. But having said that, I don't think it is the right way to go about it. The right way to go about it is, see, the world cannot live without humans, right? And because why, I'll tell you why that cannot happen. Because spending, people should be able to, they should be able to afford a decent amount of spending, right? So cost of living, people should be able to spend money at least to a certain degree. If that is, they're not able to spend, what happens is the monetary value, right? So basically how the money increases, right? So basically through interest rates or bank giving loans, right? So this is how the money value increases, right? So the site value increases, house value increases, or share market price increases. This is how the overall growth is there from a growth standpoint. So when you go with AI and people don't have jobs, it is going to directly affect that, right? So because people then we don't want people to live, but we want people to manage. We don't want employees, right? So then what happens is spending power comes down. If spending power comes down, who is going to buy? So that becomes a problem. So basically, we need to do a balancing act. The best balancing act that can be done is we need to work with them to get more done in less time with more productivity and speed. So that is the way forward.
With interest of time, last question for you, Srinivas. So, what are your thoughts about I'm a Recruiter community? And could you share how we can do better and how we can impact more recruiters' life and inspire more?
Yeah, so we need to talk about real life problems that we are facing and how we can solve them. We need to talk to each other and basically help solve those problems, right? And when we talk to each other and identify different problems in different organizations, right? So we'll be able to share more ideas, more ways of solving problems. So that's how a community actually is useful. It's rather than being in a community, not doing anything because you just want to take information and use them, use that for yourself. There are a lot of people like that who join a community because they want to take information and benefit from that. But the community really grows if you're actually talking about the problem statements that you have and kind of discussing what are the possible solutions and debating about things. So that's how a community actually improves.
With this, it's time to wind up. So, first of all, I would like to share my thanks to Srinivas for his time and his genuine feedback about the community, plus his knowledge he's sharing with all the community members who is watching our video, our podcast, and some of the interesting topics which we have shared in terms of automation and in terms of how people can save times and other things as well. And we try to do something different with this podcast. We try to make it more real, more candid. And I hope all our community members would love to watch similar kind of podcast sometime next. And with this, thank you so much for your time once again. And I would love to know a little bit more in a few future podcasts or in some of the panel discussion as well. So we would love to see you again.